Study 6.2 27 Reasons the Torah is Still Relevant to 21st Century Believers. Shalom, this is the second in a series of studies on the subject of Torah. Outline of this study. 1. Introduction. Torah Hebrew equals nomos Greek, which equals teaching English. Ainomia equals Torah-lessness. Ainomos equals Torah-less. Ainomioi equals Torahless ones. The Christian Church has several slogans. We are not under the law, we are under grace. Keeping the law is legalism. The law was nailed to the cross. We are under the new covenant. We have freedom in Christ, implying our Creator's teaching is bondage. The Christian Church cites the following verses in support of their slogans. But as the Apostle Kepha said, which those who are untaught and unstable twist to their own destruction, as they do also the other scriptures. Law and grace. We are saved by grace and not by the law. This is correct. We are no longer under the law, but under grace. This is falsehood. Some of us may have been pulled over by a traffic officer for driving a vehicle at a speed more than the legal speed limit. Then the traffic officer extended to us grace, unmerited favor, by letting us off with a verbal warning and without an infringement notice, a fine or a punishment. The law requires an infringement notice be given to offenders, but in this case, grace was extended in its place. Grace cannot be provided if there was no law in place to break. You cannot have grace without law. And having extended grace, this grace is not a license to go out and re-offend. This grace does not imply the legal speed limit has now been done away with. Yet this is exactly what the Christian Church teaches. 2. If the Torah is no longer relevant to 21st century believers, then why did the apostles? 1. Why does the Apostle Kepha declare he has never eaten any unclean food? Note this occurred about 10 years after our Messiah's death and resurrection. Shall we indeed posit our Messiah shifted the goalposts without telling Kepha? There is no evidence in the text to suggest Kepha then rocked on down to the local deli and ordered a pork chop. Later, the Apostle Kepha wrote, "Be set apart, for I am set apart." This is a direct quote from Leviticus chapter 11. Leviticus chapter 11 is the chapter which teaches on clean and unclean foods. 2. Why did the Apostle Shaul become involved with the Nazarene vow on 2 occasions, at Centuria and later with 4 other men? And why does the Apostle Yaakov encourage him in this? Note this occurred about 25 years after our Messiah's death and resurrection, and a Nazarene vow involves animal sacrifice, the Aaronic priesthood, and the temple. 3. The Apostle Shaul and circumcision. Why did the Apostle Shaul circumcise Timothy when Titus is not compelled to be circumcised? The Christian Church teaches with Timothy, Shaul was just being all things to all people. However, this explanation does not explain Shaul's actions in the Titus situation. The truth is, Titus' circumcision would have been a work of the Torah, or works. Timothy's circumcision was an act of keeping the Torah. Listener, do you understand the difference? 4. The Apostle Yaakov presenting the decision of the Jerusalem Council. Why does the Apostle Yaakov state, "It is his expectation believers will attend the synagogue every seventh-day Shabbat and learn from the Torah of Moshe"? The Apostle Shaul agreed with this, as he was one of the men who delivered the letter to the believers in Antioch, Syria, and Cilicia. Note: Gentile believers were instructed to attend the synagogue every seventh-day Shabbat and learn the Torah of Moshe. 5. The Apostle Shaul and the Torah. 1. Why does the Apostle Shaul before Festus declared he has not acted against the Torah of Moshe? 2. Why does the Apostle Shaul before the Yehudim in Rome declare he has not acted against the people or the customs of our fathers? 3. Why does the Apostle Shaul defend himself against false accusations that he taught against the Torah? 6. Why were believers in Yahushua the Messiah still zealous for the Torah? 7. The Bereans. In 52 CE, the Bereans were studying the scriptures to confirm the Apostle Shaul's message. If the Tanakh, and specifically the Torah of Moshe, is no longer relevant to believers in Messiah, then what scriptures were the Bereans studying? All scripture is breathed out by Elohim and is profitable. Note: all scripture, not just the New Testament. Note: all scripture includes the books written by Moshe. 9. If the feasts of Leviticus chapter 23 are no longer relevant, then why did the Apostle Shaul instruct the Corinthian believers to observe the feast of Passover? And note, the Apostle is talking about Passover. He is not talking about Easter. 10. If the feasts of Leviticus chapter 23 are no longer relevant, then why did the disciples observe the feast of Shavuot in Acts chapter 2? Note, this is when they received the set-apart Ruach. 11. Why did the Apostle Shaul write, "For the mind of the flesh is death, but the mind of the Spirit is life and peace"? Because the mind of the flesh is enmity towards Elohim, for it does not subject itself to the Torah of Elohim, neither is it able. And those who are in the flesh are unable to please Elohim. But you are not in the flesh, but in the Spirit, if indeed the Spirit of Elohim dwells in you. And if anyone does not have the Spirit of Messiah, this one is not his. If your slogan is, "We are not under the law, we are under grace," keeping the law is legalism. The law was nailed to the cross. We are under the new covenant. We have freedom in Christ, implying our Creator's teaching is bondage. Then you are not his. 3. If the Torah is no longer relevant to 21st century believers, then why did the prophet Yirmiyahu write, "I shall put my Torah in their inward part and write it on their hearts"? Why did the Apostle Shaul quote this verse? Because this is the covenant that I shall make with the house of Israel after those days, says Yahuwah, giving my Torah in their mind, and I shall write them on their hearts, and I shall be their Elohim, and they shall be my people. Why did the prophet Amos write, "In that day I shall raise up the booth of David which is fallen down, and I shall repair its breaches and raise up its ruins, and I shall build it as in the days of old, so that they possess the remnant of Edom and all the nations on whom my name is called, declares Yahuwah who does this." And why did the apostle Yaakov quote Amos at the Jerusalem Council? And the words of the prophets agree with this, as it has been written, "After this I shall return and rebuild the booths of David, which is fallen down, and I shall rebuild its ruins, and I shall set it up, so that the remnant of mankind shall seek Yahuwah, even all the nations on whom my name has been called, says Yahuwah, who is doing all this, who has made this known from old." Why did the prophet Yirmiyahu write, "Thus said Yahuwah, stand in the ways and see, and ask for the old paths, where the good way is, and walk in it, and find rest for yourselves"? But they said, "We will not walk in it." And I raised up watchmen over you, and said, "Listen to the voice of the shofar." But they said, "We do not listen." Therefore hear, you nations, and know, O congregation, what is upon them. Hear, O earth, see, I am bringing evil upon this people, even the fruit of their thoughts, because they have not listened to my words nor my Torah, and they rejected it. Why did the prophet Zechariah write, "Do not oppress the widow or the fatherless, the stranger or the poor, and do not plot evil in your hearts against one another"? But they refused to listen, and they shrugged their shoulders and stopped their ears from hearing, and they made their hearts like flint against hearing the Torah and the words which Yahweh of hosts had sent by his Spirit through the former prophets. Therefore great wrath came from Yahweh of hosts, and it came to be as he called, and they did not hear. So let them call, but I shall not hear, said Yahweh of hosts. They made their hearts like flint against hearing the Torah. And he called, and they did not hear. So let them call, but I shall not hear. Why did the prophet Yehezkel write, "I will remove the heart of stone from their flesh, and I will give them a heart of flesh. They will walk in my statutes and keep my judgments. They will guard them and do them"? Why did the prophet Yehezkel write, "And I shall give you a new heart and put a new spirit within you, and I shall take the heart of stone out of your flesh, and I shall give you a heart of flesh, and put my spirit within you, and I shall cause you to walk in my statutes and guard my judgments, and shall do them"? The purpose of giving us his Spirit is to enable us to observe his Torah. This is the opposite of what is taught by the church. Why did the prophet Yeshayahu record, "See my servant whom I uphold, my chosen one, my being has delighted in. I have put my Spirit upon him. He brings forth judgment to the nations"? It has delighted Yahweh for the sake of his righteousness, to make the Torah great and esteemed. Do not think I came to destroy the Torah or the prophets. To make the Torah great and esteemed. Why does Scripture state, "He who turns away his ear from hearing the Torah, even his prayer is an abomination"? And again, why does Scripture state, "And we know that Elohim does not hear sinners, but if anyone fears Elohim and does his desire, he hears him"? What is a sinner? Everyone doing sin also does Torahlessness, for sin is Torahlessness. Sin equals Torahlessness. What is his desire? 1. You shall love Yahweh your Elohim with all your heart and with all your being and with all your mind. 2. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. 3. Guard my mishmareth, charge, my mitzvot, commands, my chachat, good statutes, my Torah, teachings, and my Sabbaths. 4. And if you love me, you shall guard my commands. Why does the Apocrypha state, "And in those days the children shall begin to study the Torah, and to seek the commandments, and to return to the path of righteousness"? But in those days blessed are all who accept the words of wisdom, and understand them, and observe the paths of the Most High, and walk in the path of his righteousness, and become not Elohim-less with the Elohim-less, for they shall be saved. Violence to the Torah. Her priests have done violence to my Torah, and they profane my set-apart matters. They have not distinguished between the set-apart and profane, nor have they made known the difference between the unclean and the clean, and they have hidden their eyes from my Sabbaths, and I am profaned in their midst. Her prophets are reckless, treacherous men. Her priests have profaned the set-apart place. They have done violence to the Torah. The Torah and the prophets are until Yohanan. Since then the reign of Elohim is being announced, and everyone is doing violence upon it. 4. If the Torah is no longer relevant to 21st century believers, then why did our Messiah say, "I did not come to destroy the Torah"? And he said it twice. Not one yod or one tittle shall pass from the Torah. Has heaven and earth passed away yet? Least in the kingdom of heaven. Was the apostle Shaul least in the kingdom of heaven? Our Messiah tempted by Satan. During his 40 days in the wilderness, our Messiah was tempted by Satan 3 times. On each occasion, his response was to quote from the Torah of Moshe. If the Torah of Moshe is no longer relevant to 21st century believers, then why did he give us this example? Tzitzi are blue and white tassels on a garment, intended as a reminder to the wearer to be set apart and to keep the Torah of Moshe. The woman with a flow of blood for 12 years reached for the tzitzi on our Messiah's garment, and she was healed. The sick in Gennesaret begged to touch the tzitzi on our Messiah's garment, and they were healed. The model here is these Gentiles were healed when they reached for the Torah of Moshe. If the Torah of Moshe is no longer relevant to 21st century believers, then why did our Messiah give us this example? If you do not believe Moshe's teaching, you will not believe our Messiah's words. 21st century Christian church, you understand, do not lie, do not steal, do not commit adultery, love your neighbor, etc. But you forget to keep the Sabbath, to keep the scriptural feast days, to keep the clean and unclean food Torah, etc., etc., etc. As you do not believe Moshe's teaching, therefore you do not believe our Messiah's words. And then I shall declare to them, I never knew you. Depart from me, you who work Torahlessness. 5. Emunah, Aman, Shema, and Shema. Emunah is faith, belief, trust, steadfastness, or reliability. It's a noun, a condition, or a quality. Aman is to have faith, belief, trust, to be steadfast or reliable. It is a verb, an action, or a process. Emunah and Aman are from the same Hebrew word root. This is not just knowing something is true. This is not passive belief. This is living in a way that demonstrates dependency upon our Creator. It is active belief. Shema is to hear, to understand, and to obey. It is a verb. Shema is often translated as hear. However, ancient Hebrew lacks a specific word for obey. Shema indicates hearing and obeying. Shema is to guard, keep, watch over, preserve, or treasure. It is a verb. Shema invokes the image of a shepherd building a thorny fence to protect sheep. It is active diligence. Emunah drives Shema. Shema enables Shema. Shema is Aman. Aman demonstrates Emunah. A person with Emunah will Shema our Creator's voice, and Shema His mitzvot and His Torah. This Aman is the active proof of a person's Emunah to the covenant. Hellenistic or Greek and Western thought views faith and obedience as two separate concepts and says we can be saved by our faith without having to obey. In Hebrew thought, Emunah is not passive intellectual belief. Emunah is not accomplished until it results in action. To express this another way, to be a builder, noun, you must build, verb, houses. You might believe you are a builder, noun, but until you actually build, verb, a house, you are simply deceiving yourself. The righteous shall live by his emunah. Belief without works is dead. You see then, a man is declared right by works, and not by belief alone.